Welcome to our Tuesday Namaste session. Wonderful to have all of you here. Vicky and Teddy will not be joining us this morning. Teddy might be here, but I know Vicky is with some people for a funeral. So we're going to keep her and that family in our minds. But let's take a deep breath to begin. Today we will share and sing the daily word because I liked this one. Yesterday's was just a little bit more challenging, but today's worked well for me. So was able to put this one to music, and I think it's going to be a wonderful jumping off point. And then I'm going to invite Reverend Kathleen if she would join me one more time before she and Jude leave later today. Kathleen is going to be a new resident here. Good morning. She's going to be a new resident here at Namaste, coming in August or September. So we're very excited about that. I don't know how many of you know this out there, but we are going to be having a Unity Minister in residence here on a continual basis. Well, there'll be different retired Unity ministers who will be coming here, spending time each month, doing meditation, sharing the sessions, just helping to be part of the spiritual vibrancy of this family. So Kathleen, we're so happy. You're going to be doing that the whole month of December, yes, I believe. So yes. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and I'm going to pull up the daily word for the day and we'll share that. Let me put it up on the screen. Okay. So I let go and enter the inner sanctuary of peace. I let go and enter the inner sanctuary of peace. So let me sing this a few times and I'll bring you guys in. I let go and enter the inner sanctuary of peace, of peace, of peace. See if you can join me in that. I let go and enter the inner sanctuary of peace. Sanctuary of peace, of peace, of peace. Feel yourself surrendering into that sacred sanctuary. I let go and enter the inner sanctuary of peace, of peace, of peace. I let go and I enter the inner sanctuary of peace, of peace. I choose to find love, for you are deep within me now. All I ask is but to enter. If only you would show me how to find peace in this troubled world to find light in what is dark. For your holy fire is all I need now. All it takes now is a single spark of your love. Okay, here we are in the beginning again. I let go and enter the inner sanctuary of peace, of peace, of peace. One more time, I let go and I enter the inner sanctuary of peace, of peace, of your peace, of peace. Inner peace. I let go and enter the inner sanctuary of peace. Amidst a storm, anxious disciples called upon Jesus to calm the wind and still the rolling sea. I bring this story to mind when an inner storm of surging thoughts overwhelms me. I shift my attention to the Christ essence within to lead the way to inner peace. To do this, I seek quiet in the outer world and within myself. I begin to let go as I lay my burdens aside. The inner realm of quiet and solitude is a sacred space, a healing place, a resting place. I let my whole being feel peace. In the silence, I am open to receive. I am a willing vessel to be filled with divine ideas and with guidance to make my path easier to travel. With gratitude, I emerge refreshed and serene. And from the Gospel of Luke, they went to him and woke him up, shouting, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And when he woke up and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, they ceased, and there was a calm. So let's sing this one more time. I let go and enter the inner sanctuary of peace. I let go and I enter the inner sanctuary of peace, of peace, of peace. I let go and I enter the inner sanctuary of peace, of peace, of peace. Let's just spend a moment allowing that inner sanctuary to envelop us, to fall back into the arms of grace, to be at peace. So the lesson today begins with the words, I let go. Those are big words, challenging words. Because the last thing we really want to do is to let go. It's the thing we resist the most. We like the illusion of letting go, or letting go in a few small things. But when it comes to the deep, essential stuff, I want to do it my way. I want to do it myself, because deep down, I don't trust letting go. What might happen if it doesn't work? That's the idea. What kind of control am I going to give up? In other words, I want to be in control. Where has that gotten you? Not far. The more we tighten in control, the further away we get from what? Inner peace. The more determined we are to do it on our own, usually the less gets done. But the more we learn to surrender, to let go, to allow, that was one of the words we used yesterday, allow. Knowing that it's going to be done perfectly. For example, I find that when I'm sharing in this way, or when I'm giving a talk, I'm best when I'm completely unprepared. Now that scares most people. I know most people are terribly frightened of the idea of getting in front of a group of people and being totally unprepared. But I find that it always goes better, because if I can let go and find that inner sanctuary within me, then there is a still quiet voice that begins to speak up louder and louder until it comes out of my mouth. And it's always better. That's the reason I've learned to do that, because it's always better than when I prepare. I received a beautiful letter from someone over at St. Andrew's a couple of days ago named Michael. And he began by telling me all of his degrees and all the experience he's had for 50 years teaching people to do public speaking and all of this. And I had just given the sermon. It was actually before Kosho's service, or during Kosho's service, I gave the sermon. Some of you were there. And he wrote this letter to me, basically saying how impressed he was that I could just stand up there and with no notes and obviously no real direction. and be to speak in a way that held their attention so completely for 20 minutes or whatever it was. And I would love to take credit for that, but obviously if I take credit for that, then that's the opposite of what I'm doing. It's the letting go and the allowing that still quiet voice within us to speak. And that's not just when we're in front of a group like this, but really every moment of our lives, to let go, to let the inner sanctuary speak through us. So that being said, I'm going to invite Kathleen, if you'd like to come up, and we'll sit here together. We'll talk a little bit about this letting go process.
We'll have a chat.
Yes, we'll have a little cozy chat here. So why don't you begin by come a little closer to me, as close as you can, so we can get us both perfect.
Oh, there we go.
So let go. To tell us, do you have an experience in your life when, well, maybe right now, maybe moving to Namaste is your experience of letting go? And
You think?
anything that you're thinking that you'd like to share about that?
One of the things I know about letting go and not wanting to let go have to do with fear. And so I really like Luke. I like the scripture that today, because I get this image and I've seen it and thought about it many times. The disciples are in a boat with Jesus and he's taking a nap. And the storm is raging and they're afraid. And so they wake him up and he quiets the storm. How symbolic is that to what happens with us if we are able to sit in the quiet, if we are able to get ourselves organized enough to sit down and say, okay, there's a storm raging, and I need to talk to somebody about this, and I need to talk to someone so special. My guides, Jesus, whoever is our guide or our leader, to quiet this storm. And it's really tough to do when life's challenges are coming right at you. And I tend to get pretty wound up sometimes. So it was great, really comforting to me to read those words this morning in this idea of chaos, because that's what moves are. They become chaotic. Everything gets stirred up. All the energy is moving around. And to know that I can go to this peaceful, quiet place where my way shower is Jesus, where I can have a conversation and say, and I can then be quiet and listen. At Unity Village, there is a chapel, and on the wall, it says, be still and know. That stops right there. Be still and know, ... Beautiful image. That's all that's in that chapel, just maybe about a dozen chairs. And by entering that tiny sanctuary and being reminded that I need to find my center, I need to find the stillness and release the fear, the anxiety, that I might not be in control of this. I might need to trust. I also need to see the truth in it. So that's my thought.
I just want to add something to that. You brought up that story from the Gospel of Luke. One of the things I like about that story is that they're in this boat. They're on the Sea of Galilee, and I've been to the Sea of Galilee many times, and it's big. It's really, it's just a huge, huge lake. You know, it's maybe not even as big as Lake Chapala, but it's a huge lake. You know, on the other side is probably about the same distance as it is from here to the other side of Lake Chapala. And when the wind starts to blow, it gets pretty, if a storm comes, the waves get pretty big. Just like, I don't know how many of you remember who were here, but what was it, about Friday night? There was a big storm that just swept in. And I have friends, it was actually Azuri was at a party on the lake, and she said the lake turned into an ocean. It was like big waves coming in, and things are flying everywhere, and they were afraid, and they had to find shelter. And I was thinking about this story where the entire time this storm is raging with them, and they're in the boat, afraid they're about to drown because water's starting to come in. Here's Jesus sound asleep. Right. And in a similar way, when the storm is raging around us, the Christ is always there sleeping until what? Until we wake him up. And in the story, the disciples say, Master, Master, basically, how can you be sleeping? We're about to die. And he gets up as calm as can be and just looks around. Now that he's awake, now that the Christ is in control and the storm is stilled. And isn't it the same for us? That Christ consciousness, the Christ within us, sleeps until we call upon it, until we say, I can't do this. This is beyond me. I let go. I surrender. I'm now calling to you to open your eyes. I'm turning control over to you now. And the storm is stilled. We come to that place of calm. I love that story because it does speak not only to what happened then, but to what's happening to us now.
It does. And I think there's another part of that, James Francis. I think it's also that because the storm was quieted, the disciples knew they were heard. They knew that what had happened was that this calm presence had heard them, had heard them, and I think that's so important to everyone. A very, very good friend of mine said, it's very important for me to be seen and to be heard.
Mhm.
And I think that happens in this story, because the storm is calmed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
Wow. I don't know if there's anything left to say with that.
I think so. Thank you.
What were you going to say, Jeff?
There is. The storms are thought,
Yeah,
nothing
Yes.
outside.
that's
Yeah.
right. The storm, just like everything else, it's within us. I mean, it doesn't really matter what's happening out here. If we have that, that's why the words are inner peace, not outer peace. The storm is always in our reaction to what we believe to be happening. I'm sure we've all been in a situation where there've been some dramatic thing that's going on, and maybe everyone else is freaking out, but somehow we're like that calm place right in the middle. Well, isn't that what's so needed today? For us to realize it's always within, and I can find that still quiet point within me, no matter what is spinning around me, I am at peace. So Kathleen, we're so happy that you're going to be joining us in
Thank you.
August or September, and then taking over for me in December.
All right.
Yay.
Well, it's happening.
It is happening indeed.
Thank you to everyone. It's been a wonderful experience to be here for this week to experience what you're doing with session.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
I want to see if Teddy is here. Vicky said Teddy might be, or Teddy, are you here? I can't see yet. Okay, he must not be. Let me call upon someone. I'm going to call upon Alice. I always love Alice's perspective. So, dear Alice, we need one more perspective of this still calm place. So why don't you unmute yourself and share with us?
Peace. Peace be with you. That is what Jesus always greeted everybody with, and also left everybody with. May peace be with you. Now, those words are very powerful. They're not just superficial words. May peace be with you. He's wishing you or bestowing upon you one of the greatest attributes of the Christ self, the inner peace. And it's so important to call upon it. And the angels of peace and the presence of peace awaits that invitation, because it's always there. In our hearts and in our souls, it's always there. And sometimes we forget, sometimes I forget. But that presence of peace is one of the greatest presences that we can actually carry with us, inwardly and outwardly in our lives. There's nothing almost to pray for except for the peace of mind. And from peace of mind comes everything. The still small voice, the beauty of receiving and giving love. Because I truly feel that we've been created in loving peace. So this lesson today, I was reading it again before we started, James Francis. I just was reading it, and I've been away for a week down at the sea with no internet, so no proper internet, and I've been feeling a lot of peace. And it's lovely to have holidays of peace. Holidays of peace. But why do we even need to go anywhere to have that? It's with us all the time. All we do is choose it. I want peace instead of this. You know, it's just so beautiful that. So this lesson today is a reminder of how Jesus greeted you. And may Jesus greet you and the Christ greet you now. May peace be with you.
Thank you, Alice. Beautiful as always. You know, there's one other story I would love to share that's I'm remembering as you're speaking. It's a story that happened in my life, many, many years ago. I was in South Africa not long after apartheid had ended. And I was there doing some concerts and doing some workshops on peace. And at one point, I met a minister whose name was Reverend Martin, I think. Anyway, was a man who, an African man who worked with the gangs in the townships. I was in Cape Town, and at that time, Cape Town was the murder capital of the world. Over 300 people a month were being murdered just in Cape Town, usually primarily in the townships. So poor, so disadvantaged, and so violent. And so Reverend Matthews wanted to bring all the leaders of all the different gangs in Cape Town together and have me speak to them about peace. First, I was like, what? You want me to speak to who? You're going to bring all the gang leaders together into one place. Okay, sure, of course. So this was held in one of the townships outside, and we got there early, obviously, and we're standing there, and cars began to pull up, and from one, it was almost like a scene from very, very not as nice, but from West Side Story. You had a Mercedes, like 3 Mercedes would pull up, and 8 guys would get out and look real tough. And then over on this corner, a bunch of other BMWs would pull. I mean, these really nice cars in this very poor neighborhood, and these very tough guys. So probably 4 groups of these leaders, and they would be one group here, and they stayed together. And I was supposed to talk to them. And now what I was going to say to them, I had no idea. But I do remember I began singing the prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. And there's something so powerful in that prayer. I'm sure you've felt it before, especially when we sing it, to be an instrument of peace. You can't be an instrument unless you let go, unless you surrender. I like to think of, an instrument like my guitar here, my quattro. It can't play itself. It has to fall back into the arms of the master musician, and only then do the strings begin to vibrate. And it's the same with us. Only when we fall back and surrender do the strings of our heart begin to vibrate. So I sang that prayer, and I remember a little bit later, one of these men, after I'd given my talk, one of these men came up to me and asked if he could speak to me for a moment over there, away from everybody else. I learned later that this man was considered to be one of the most violent men in South Africa. So, and he had these dark eyes, almost lifeless. And he wanted me to get away from everybody else. And at first I was a little bit nervous, but then I looked and I could see tears beginning to well up into his eyes. So we walked away, and when we got a good distance and he felt safe, he said, and I can almost remember these words exactly. He said, I have killed as many as 5 people in one day. And I don't know how to do what you're talking about or how to gain this inner peace you're describing, but I want it. And I just looked at him. I don't remember if I said anything, but I held space for that. And that's the transformative power of this peace. I don't know what he did in his life later. I'd like to think that maybe that was the beginning of something. His decision, I want this. I don't know how to do it. he was letting go, maybe for the first time in his life. And that story has stayed with me for probably 25 years. That's the power of letting go. That's the power of choosing to be an instrument of peace. So thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Alice. Thanks to all of you. But let's take a moment before we go to just focus on the prayers that we would like to bring to this altar. If there are any petitions that you would like to lay before this holy family, these mighty companions, so that we can join together and add energy to the knowing that they have already been answered. So if you're watching this Zoom, I'll invite you to go ahead and type it into the chat. And before then, I'll look out here to the Namaste Village group. And if anyone has a prayer they would like to express or a petition, please go ahead and say it out loud. Yes.
I have a poem I'd like to share. I wrote.
Is it a petition or just a poem? Because if it's just a poem, I'll have you do it at the very end.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll end with that. That'll be nice. Any prayers, any petitions? Yes.
Just a blessing of light and love surrounding this village,
Mm.
Orchard Village, and particularly the children.
Kathleen is praying, knowing that light is surrounding not only Namaste Village, but all of the villages that are around us, and in particular, all of the children who are here, that they may be abundant and blessed. And we know that this is true now.
And courage to face the need for forgiveness of everything that I need to forgive, to be free.
The courage to face forgiveness and to be free. We are facing that in this moment together as one, and we are free.